I'm live. Hello, it is I, Becca Laurie Hector, here with this week's Growing Gratitude. We join here every Monday at 11:30 Eastern Time, and we kind of get ready for our week together. We talk about the challenges of the week that has passed, and we talk a little bit about how we are going to motivate ourselves through the next set of challenges and get through the next week. And it is my absolute pleasure every Monday to sort of start my week with you guys. I try not to schedule any meetings before our live stream on Monday mornings. And I really do a bunch of self care and stuff. And getting ready for my week ahead. And then I started out with you guys. So thank you so much for joining me this week. And let's get into it. Let's not even waste any time today getting into things. Well, as some of you may or may not know, I am, or can't tell by my accent, that I hail from the East Coast of the United States. And it has been a week here in the United States. I will tell you. I know it's been global news. I know we've all been inundated by everything related to the United States election. And there are some really, really tough topics that are coming up with this election. And there's also a lot of really strong feelings and emotions around this election and the impact that it may or may not have. And so I'm not a very political person, and that is because I spent years and years bartending and hanging out in that area. And anytime anybody talks about politics or religion in that scenario, it never ends well. And so I sort of just said, that's the kind of thing I'm always going to keep private. And I really just don't want to hang out in groups with people where they talk about highly charged topics like that. I don't feel safe. And so that's kind of been my take on it. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about this part a little today, because this is more than just about the election, and I want to share it with you. So um, I don't know about you guys, but I have been feeling called in a very deep way to isolate myself in these last few months. I've just been, there was a desire for it somewhere in September, and now it's a need. Like I feel so pulled to isolate myself and surround myself only with a very few people that I feel safe with, and really look into myself and isolate. And I know that's partially because of the time of year, and it's something that I do as a person. That's part of my cycle. But also between what is going on with the election and the emotions and the opinions and some of the statements that go along with it, as well as the inundation of the news. And then I layer it with what's been going on with P. Diddy. And I don't know if any of you guys are following it, but it is something that it was one of those topics. And I've been following it very closely, and perhaps too closely. But as I look at all of those things kind of gathering together, I'm really um, unhappy with my fellow man right now, is how I'm feeling, or my fellow human right now. That's how I'm feeling. And I don't know how many other humans I feel safe around right now. And so I'm feeling really drawn to isolate away from it. And what that made me think about, and why I'm talking about it here, is how it may or may not be impacting you as well as you sit at home. And or you sit wherever you're watching this, whenever you're watching it, right? How is it impacting you in your way? And can we do about it, right? Because part of the reason this impacts us so deeply is that it's very disempowering, right? Both of these things are these big news items, these shock value news items that come out for us, right? That we then get inundated with from all sides all the time, all over social media. It's all over our news. There's no escape, right? That kind of thing. It happens more and more in our culture. It's now become a really kind of expected norm right? And how we respond to any kind of big things that are happening out in the world. And I don't know if that's the appropriate response. I don't know that inundating people with information is really, on a second to second basis, is really does us any favors. And I think that's what I want to point out to you guys is that it's rough out there right now. I'm feeling really sad, like deeply sad in my soul, sad about a few things. And I'm also feeling very tired and run down myself because I've been through some burnout. And I've just been like, wait, these things all make me feel so disempowered. And the only way, right, like that, how my feelings on it or whatever actions I could take around these issues is very minimal. Right. And I don't really have very much control over how it all plays out. And that's terrible to give your power away that way. It feels awful to have to give your power away. And so, what I want to suggest that we all do as a response is to take our little bit of personal power back. Right. And what I mean by that is starting to control your input. It's some of the lessons from the course, right? From self-defined living is take your power back, control your input and output. If you don't like what is happening out there that you see, right? Don't inundate yourself with it all the time. You can take breaks from social media. You can stop following people. Um you can walk away from it for good portions of the day and still stay informed, right? And still know what's going on in the world. And keeping up with it second by second, they make it seem exciting like new information is coming out. But the truth is, when you unpack it all, it's just to keep you watching, right? Keep you engaged with what's going on. So don't fall for that. Take your input back. Right? Remember that just because 90% of the output that is coming out of the world right now is this stuff doesn't mean that you have to partake in it 90% of the time, right? You can still choose what you're partaking in for 90% of the time and give a small portion of your time to that to stay informed. And so I want to suggest that we want to think about input because if you don't want more of it out in the world, you don't want to be creating it yourself. And you certainly don't want to be feeding it into yourself from your input. So change those inputs, right? If especially as it's dragging you down and stealing your energy, right? It's time to mute some accounts. It's time to, step away maybe entirely from social media for a little bit. It's time to, you know, think about what you're feeding your brain, how often, how much, and do I really need it that much? And when you fill it up that way, what are you missing out on? What is displaced, right? What is being shoved out of the way that's your usual input because this is what's coming in. So it's time to think about those things, right? This is the perfect time to say, I'm taking my power back and I'm going to take control of this. And I don't have to listen just because it's being spouted out all the time out there doesn't mean that you have to take it in all the time, right? That's just not what has to be happening. And the other thing is boundaries. This is a lesson in boundaries, right? It's okay to say to people, you know what? I don't feel like talking about it anymore. Or I've had enough of that. Can we talk about something else? What's going on in your life? How are you? Right? Those kind of things. And finding shared spaces of joy with each other that we know we can talk about our special interests together, or we can talk about a book we're reading that has nothing to do that's fiction, right? Because really the world feels like fiction right now. And so we can step away, we can take that purposeful and intentional step away from being inundated by it, because the truth is that the world moves very, very slowly most of the time, right? And so while they may be telling us that there's new things to know, it's usually not breaking news. And if you check in once a day, you're going to be up to date, right? If you check in once a day at the same time every day, you'll stay up to date. You don't have to look at it every time you look at your phone. I want you to remember that control. And I want you to also think about those boundaries around it, about saying to people, no, no more. I can't talk about it anymore today. Or could we please talk about something else? Or I know that it's hard to think about anything else or how we're feeling, but what it should draw you to do is say, I don't want to talk about that anymore, but I do want to talk about how it impacts you. That's the conversations that I want us to be having with each other is this crap is going on in the world, right? But how is it impacting you? How is it impacting you as a person? What can I do to support you around that? Those are the conversations we should be having with each other, right? Because these things that are going out in the world have impact, big impact, right? And it may not be instantaneous impact, but it's certain the emotional impact is instantaneous. That's what's instantaneous, that emotional feeling. So how do we support each other emotionally without drowning in information that triggers all our trauma and creates more anxiety for a lot of us and all of these other things? Because we do want to be able to sustain ourselves through these periods, right? Because when the time comes or the chance arrives that we can step in and do something about it, right? We want to be healthy. We want to be ready to do that, right? That's kind of the game plan. And so I say to you in this time, really heavy, deep emotions where there are people who are afraid. I am one of them. That this can really be an overwhelming trigger, and we must purposefully step away when we can to take care of ourselves, right? We need to step away and do the self care. We need to think about other things because while these things are awful and will impact us and all of those things, at the same time, we all still have bills to pay. We all have to go to the grocery store and make sure that there's food in the fridge. We all have to be meal planning and doing our laundry and taking our showers and all of those things. And that takes energy too. And so we have to create that balance. So I say to you today, right? These horrible things are going on. I'm not going to pretend like they're not going on and that there aren't things out there to be fearful of. But what I will say is that we walk through the fear better and our responses are better when we take the time to take care of ourselves. And we don't have to take in information at the speed at which the world is dishing it out, right? We do not have to do that. We can take it in at a speed that is digestible for ourselves. That's what we should be aiming to do, right? Because we want to be standing when the time comes, right, for us to be leaned upon. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. Excuse me as I lean over because I need a drink. But that's kind of what I've been thinking about this weekend. It's really hard to not think about that this weekend. So as I sat and thought about all of these awful things, I also made sure that I paused and I went and I sat outside and I took in some fresh air, as cold as it was, right? That I hung out with my dogs, that we did lots of snuggling, that I ate things that were nourishing to me, that helped keep me standing, that I remembered to drink my electrolytes, that I remembered to drink water, that I did all of these other things that I take breaks to think about. And because of that, I'm still standing this morning, right? So, as low as all of this stuff has taken me, it's a reminder that we have to get up well, right? And here I am saying to you, getting up well in this scenario is creating those boundaries, is setting some distinction about how much you're going to let in, right? Because we also want to start putting out there more of what we want to see in the world, right? That's the saying, be what you want to, the change that you want to see in the world will be the positivity that you want to see in the world. Um, be the person that people can rely on and lean upon because you've taken care of yourself in this moment, right? And not let your emotions take control of everything, right? Because we need to still care for the meat suit, right? We have to take care of these things. We have to pay our bills. We still have to go to work while these awful things are happening, right? Because otherwise we're going to look up and awful things will be happening for us in our worlds, right? And so we have to stay strong now. And so those are some of the things I've been reminding myself of in this very difficult time right now here in the United States. It has been amazing, though, to see the rest of the world respond the way the rest of the world has. Um, it really was a weird blow to get here in the States. And certainly the day after the election, it felt like nature knew that something was up. It was very oddly quiet. The energy was very low. It felt like, for me, it reminded me of the day after lockdown started, or like in that lockdown period with the pandemic, when everything was like eerie quiet, like even the animals knew something was going on out in the world, the birds and just everything. This had a very similar feeling to it, like just the overall of the whole. I don't know, it felt like for me, the universe, because here I am alone, right, up in this really rural area, but we felt it up here. And so I can only imagine what it felt like in the cities, where population is much higher. And so it's been a crazy couple of days. The energy has been strange. And so I hope you guys are letting yourself recover from that, because there's something about it that's reminiscent. It's a very reminiscent pattern. Um, and so we need to learn to get up well here, and we need to be paying attention better than when we paid attention to the pandemic information. And we need to take better care of ourselves along the way. We learned a lot from that pandemic. We all took a lot away from it. And so this may be also yet another chance to learn all those things. So, with that, I'm going to kind of change subject on you for the next few minutes. And I want to do a little F word update. It's been a bit since I've talked about where I'm at. And I want to share with you, I have picked my word. I have ordered the bracelet, right? And I am happy to say that it is on its way and shall arrive. But I'm not going to share the word with you yet. I will share the word with you when it arrives. I'm going to do a big reveal. But I do want to talk about the word that didn't pass the test, which is the number 2 word for this year. So I talked a lot about how I want to enter into kind of this year and what I want to take with me, and that this past year has been all about forging a path and forging ahead and figuring out where I want to go with everything. Now that we had arrived in Maine and all, I'm still adjusting to my hair. Can I just pause to say that? It's getting really long, you guys. I'm trying to not get frustrated with it because I just want to see what happens. Okay. Anyway, right. So what, it was all about that. What kind of energy do I want to bring into the year? What do I want to do with that? And so it's this very idea that I'm where I want to be. And so if I'm where I want to be, I planted a lot of seeds in this forging year. I forged ahead, built some gardens, dropped some seeds. And so this next year for me is all about tending to that, right? How can I tend to what I put out there in the world this year? How can I tend to this life that I'm building? And so the first word that I really thought was going to be the word was fertilize, right? Fertilize. What a great word, right? It's the act, right? That act of sort of taking care of and really nourishing what you're trying to grow, right? It's nourishing that thing. And so I was really close with that word. But here's the thing. With being autistic and picking words. We can't help it. Maybe it happens for the neuromajority. I don't know. Can't vouch for that. But what I can tell you is that this go around, I was like, that word just makes me feel ick. It gives me an ick and I can't quite explain it. And then I started to think about it and I was like, oh, it's because of manure. And like when you go to fertilize something, usually you're fertilizing, or at least here in the country, is the smell of manure comes and wafting through when you fertilize. And so I was like, oh, so fertilize is a little bit like poo a little bit. And I got like that. And I started to think about it and I was like, oh, I wonder if other people have that association with this word. Nonetheless, I was like, forget it, fertilize. I'm moving on. I just don't think you're gonna work for this year. I need something that doesn't make me go, with that face on. I need something that gets me excited. So I was close with fertilize, and fertilize was almost the word, but it is not. That was our second place word, because then it had this weird kind of attachment to it for me. So I moved on and I did find the word, which I will share with you as soon as my little intent bracelet, my intent bracelet, comes in. Again, this isn't sponsored by anybody, but my intent, if you would love the My Intent project, first of all, I love what they do and I love what it stands for, but also My Intent, if you would like to sponsor me, I'd be happy for that. I get one every year. I'm wearing mine right now. This is my Forge bracelet still, from this past year. And so soon the new one will be coming. And this will go in the collection and everything will switch around. And I can't wait to share that with you when it does arrive. And I think that's about it for today. I want to say it was kind of a heavy live stream, but the world is heavy right now. And so it's okay to feel heavy, but it's not okay to get stuck here. And so I want to keep us getting up well. Let's insert those boundaries. Let's change up that input. Let's do what we can to stand strong. So when people need us the most, we are well and ready to serve. right? That's what we should be doing. And with that, I say, ladies and gentlemen, and all others out there, here we go. This is my little reminder to you that in these especially hard times, it is becomes even more important to take care of your meat suit and to take care of your headspace and to keep your eyes and ears open for all the goodness out there, all the little glimmers that we can catch on to that keep us motivated through the week ahead. All right, you guys, I will see you next Monday right here at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time for the next Growing Gratitude. And until then, please do take care of yourselves and keep an eye on what you're letting in. Have a good week, you guys.